Like clock on the wall says it's time we get going. So if you would be turning your Bibles, opening your Bibles to Exodus, the 8th chapter, we will continue talking about the events there. So I want this to be your class, so to ask questions and to have comments. If there's something that we don't cover or you want to see us cover, there's my contact information. You can text me or email me or simply write it on a card and get it back to me. As we have been looking at the book of Exodus and what goes on there, God revealed over this period of time that it was a lot more than just trying to get the Israelites out of Egypt. He did want to fulfill his promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and get that part done, but he also wanted to teach the Egyptians that he wanted his name to be proclaimed, that he wanted Pharaoh to humble himself before him and to become a believer that Yahweh is God. Which isn't working very well so far, but it's also been done to teach future generations about who he is and what he is like, and so that they would have those stories to tell. And here we are 4,000 years later, still telling this story. So one of the questions that often comes up in the story of Exodus is, part of the time, our translations say that the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and sometimes it says Pharaoh hardened his heart. So I went in and shared with you in one of the lessons that there are 3 Hebrew words, and those H letters are Hebrew words categorized by a scholar, last name is Strong, so we call them Strong's numbers. There are 3 different Hebrew words that are translated as hardened in the book of Exodus. The first one, H2388, is Kazakh, if I'm even getting close to that. Each of these Hebrew words has a concrete meaning, a firm, a literal meaning, but then they also get used in a metaphorical sense or a figurative sense. So Kazakh, literally means a firm grip, getting a good hold on something, but when it's used figuratively, it can mean to encourage or to strengthen. It's a word that's also used in Joshua. This word is actually applied as much to Joshua as it is to Pharaoh. To be strong and be courageous, same word. H3513, avad, there's actually an adjective form of that, H3515. The literal meaning, the concrete meaning is heavy. And so if you are heavy with bad things, it's been severe. Or if it's applied to a body part, your eyes or your ears or your heart, then it's dull. It's not working, it's dysfunctional. But it's also applied in, if you're heavy with wealth, then you're rich. Or heavy with honor. So it's also used that way. H7185 is only used twice. The literal meaning is it's the yoke that you would put on an ox, specifically a burdensome yoke, or how an ox rebels when the yoke is first put on him. It's being rebellious. It's translated twice, once as hardened, but the other time it's translated in Exodus, it is stubbornly refused. Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let the people go, and that's where that word is used. So as we go through these, I will continue to point out which one of these Hebrew words is used in our stories where Pharaoh's heart is hardened or is that occurs. 2 weeks ago, we took a look at the first 3 plagues, which was water to blood, frogs, and gnats, or lice, as some translations say. One of the things that I'm becoming more and more familiar with and pointing and realizing is that these first 9 plagues are written and grouped together in 3 groups of 3. There's several things that happen. I don't know if that was written as a literary style, because this was originally very verbal. Moses wrote it down, but not everybody had a copy of the Bible with them. And so it would be retold verbally over and over and over again. For example, in this grouping, in plagues 1, 4, and 7, the first of each of these triads, Moses is told to go to Pharaoh in the morning. All 3 of those are that way. And in plagues 1, 4, and 7, if you look at the description of what goes on in that plague, it is a long story. It's a long plague. There's a lot of information there. However, in plagues 3, 6, and 9, the last of the triads, there is no warning given before the plague. It just says, God says, don't go tell Pharaoh first, just go do this in his sight. No warning that tomorrow this is going to happen. So there's no warning. And plagues 3, 6, and 9 are also the shortest part of the stories. So the first set of the triad, I keep looking at my numbers, 1, 4, and 7, it's a long story of a plague. Then in 2, 5, and 8, it's a little bit shorter. And then in 3, 6, and 9, it's the shortest description of the plagues of all, and no warning given. So you can see that those are all grouped together. The first set of 3, apparently those plagues happened to Egyptians and Israelites both. So let's take a look at, starting in Exodus 8, with plagues 4, 5, and 6. Any questions or comments so far? We're at where we're going. All right. Exodus 8, verse 20. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Rise up early in the morning and present yourself to Pharaoh as he goes out to the water, and say to him, 'Thus says Yahweh, let my people go that they may serve me. Or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you and on your servants and on your people and into your houses. And the houses of the Egyptians shall be filled with swarms of flies, also the ground on which they stand. But on that day I will set apart the land of Goshen where my people dwell, so that no swarms of flies shall be there, that you may know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the earth. Thus I will put a division between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign will happen.' And Yahweh did so. There came great swarms of flies into the house of Pharaoh and into his servants' houses. Throughout all the land of Egypt, the land was ruined by the swarms of flies. Then Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, 'Go, sacrifice to your God within the land.' But Moses said, 'It would not be right to do so, for the offerings we shall sacrifice to Yahweh our God are an abomination to the Egyptians. If we sacrifice offerings abominable to the Egyptians before their eyes, will they not stone us? We must go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to Yahweh our God as he tells us.' So Pharaoh said, 'I will let you go to sacrifice to Yahweh your God in the wilderness, Only you must not go very far away. Plead for me." Then Moses said, "Behold, I am going out from you, and I will plead with Yahweh that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh and from his servants and from his people tomorrow. Only let not Pharaoh cheat again by not letting the people go to sacrifice to Yahweh." So Moses went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yahweh. And Yahweh did as Moses asked and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also and did not let the people go. And that hardened there is H3513, which is heavy, dysfunctional, dulled. His heart didn't work like it should. So, questions? What did you pick up there as we read through that this time? Yes? The magicians were not mentioned. Where did they go? Mm-hmm. And then this fourth plague, they're not mentioned. They're not mentioned at all. Yeah. First two they duplicated, as well as the signs that they were true messengers, the staffs to snakes. And then the third one, they said, we can't duplicate the gnats. This is the finger of God. And in this one, they're not mentioned at all.
Might be, because later it says the officials are believing Moses. Pharaoh doesn't, but the officials. So I'm thinking they're starting to realize this is something beyond us.
They will come back in and out throughout these plagues. You're right. Yeah. What else? What else did you notice? Yes?
I was gone last week. I don't know if we talked about this yet. But, we always hear Moses, we quote him saying, "Let my people go." All he's asking for is to go sacrifice in the wilderness. He's not saying, "Let's go forever. We're out of here. We're not coming back."
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't say, "We're going to leave forever. We just want to go 3 days away." And Pharaoh's not even willing to let that. I thought it was interesting here that he says, he offers a compromise this time. Pharaoh wants a compromise. Okay, you can have a few days off to sacrifice, but stay here in the land. And he goes, no, that's not going to work. Because our sacrifices are abominations. But then Pharaoh says, well, okay, you can go, but don't go very far. What does he not understand about a 3-day journey? A 3-day journey is a 3-day journey. He's still trying to bargain here. What else did you notice? Yeah, good question. How?
About 4, 5, or 6 days for some of these people to get that place.
Yeah, the question is, the Sinai Peninsula was actually under the control of Egypt. Now, I don't know how populated it was. So, is he talking about going 3 days out into the Sinai Peninsula or going 3 days beyond the Sinai Peninsula? Maybe that's what they're bargaining over. How far out? Don't go. Either way, it's not going to happen, is it? It's not happening. What's the big distinction that starts here that has not been in the previous 3 plagues?
The Israelites were exempt from this plague.
Yes, the land of Goshen is exempt. No swarms of flies among my people. It's only going to affect your people. Let me ask you something. What's so bad about swarms of flies? What isn't bad about them? Well, okay, the deal about gnats is they're a blood-sucking insect, right? So these flies are, I mean, okay, I understand flies are nasty. They taste with their feet. They walk on your food. You don't want them in your house. But really, it says the land is ruined by swarms of flies. I mean, that's what I've always thought. Okay. Ask your horse. Okay. But that's a different fly than what I've always envisioned. Interestingly enough, I was reading a commentary, and he said when the Jewish scholars in Alexandria translated the Hebrew into Greek, because so many Jews were not learning Hebrew, but they knew Greek, when they translated this in the Septuagint, they used the phrase dog flies, which would equate to what I understand a lot of Texans call stock flies, what I always called horse flies. Those big suckers that bite. And when they bite, they hurt because unlike mosquitoes or gnats, which actually have a kind of a needle apparatus that poke you, they have actual mandibles with teeth. It's not really teeth, but you know, that with a sawtooth edge that actually bite you, and it stings and it hurts. That would, you know, like you say, ask your horse. That's what bites the horse. Those hurt. Have you ever been at a swimming pool when one of those horse flies shows up? I mean, I've seen the entire swimming pool start swatting and watching where that horsefly is going, you know, because nobody wants to get bit by that thing. And there are swarms of them everywhere. Except Goshen. You know, if you lived on the edge of Goshen, do you think you moved over into the land? Huh? I want you to think about that because it's one of the things that's going to change here. So, yeah, what about that? They also said that it may not just be a kind of fly; that there was multiple kinds of the flies. So what else did you notice in this plague? Mm-hmm. Yes. Please plead for me. Yeah, this is not going well. And this is bothersome and this is painful. I don't know how long of a gap there is. It's not mentioned between the plague starting and then him calling Moses and Aaron to him. Okay?
The other thing I noticed is that in this one, Moses calls him out, which he hasn't really done before. He says, only don't cheat me this time. I mean, he kind of pulls back the curtain and says, okay, let's get real here. What you're doing is you're reneging, you're cheating. Don't do that no more.
Yeah, Moses is being a little bit bold here. I mean, this guy rules the land, right? And he says, Yeah, don't cheat. Don't miss the transition that's happening in Moses. Okay? This is the guy that said, you need to pick somebody else. I don't want to do this. And God says, well, okay, I'll give you Aaron, your brother. He'll be your spokesman. And Moses is like, I really don't want to do this. No, you're going to do this. And now then he is standing before who is to him the ruler of his known world, and he's saying, you're a big cheater. Don't cheat this time. That's a certain boldness that is different than when in the earlier plague, Moses said, okay, you tell me when you want me to plead for the frogs to go away. You tell me what you want. And this one, he's telling Pharaoh what God wants.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that occurs to me about this process that Moses is going through is I think this is God schooling Moses to understand more of how he feels when people start drifting, when they just continue, because he's going to be very strong against the congregation in the wilderness when they can't seem to stay on track.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just this little one thing where he's just kind of a little cheesed about Pharaoh. This is kind of an allegorical almost thing happening with Moses. He's learning kind of how it feels to be God. And early on it was just, this is just kind of annoying. Now this is getting serious. And that's just kind of my thought
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, there are, I think you're right, Terry. There is multiple things going on here. God is growing Moses through this process into the leader that Yahweh wants him to be. But he is also trying to get Egypt out of the Israelites, besides getting the Israelites out of Egypt. They have been 400 years in this culture. And so he is teaching the Israelites and Moses and Aaron and Pharaoh and the Egyptians, this is who I am. And as these plagues go along, you'll notice that they get more and more severe and more precise. The Egyptian gods cannot do that. They never did that. Notice, it's not just a minor thing that Moses comes with the word of the Lord and says, this is going to happen tomorrow. I will plead for you, and these will go away tomorrow. Not sometime next week. And it happens right on schedule. That is a precision the world has never seen. It's really an amazing thing. I've told you before, I know I think strange thoughts. One of the things I got to wondering about this last week was, what language is Moses talking to Pharaoh in? Is it Egyptian, or is he talking Hebrew, and then somebody's translating for Pharaoh? Moses was trained, okay? I am imagining that he is speaking Egyptian to these. And here's why I ask the question. In Hebrew, God's name is Yahweh, which means the living one. The one who is alive. So when he talked to Pharaoh, when he says there, let me find it again. For example, behold, I am going out from you, and I will plead with Yahweh. Does he use the name, does he say Yahweh? Or I will plead with the one who lives? Is that what he says in Egyptian? A translation. I don't know. I'm just telling you, that's the way my mind, I'm thinking sometimes. And if you heard somebody say in English, I will go out and plead with the one who lives, the one who exists, the one who rules. How do you translate that name? But that's what the name is. It's the living one. I will go out and plead with the living one for you. Wow. I think it means something else to that. But he hardened his heart, and all of a sudden, now then there's dead flies everywhere. Sweep your house. Big dead flies. Anything else you want to bring up about that? I'm not really sure what was the abomination to them, but we know if we go back into when they first came to the land, that Joseph told Pharaoh, let them live up in Goshen because shepherds are abominable to the Egyptians. And when Joseph had his brothers seated with the Egyptian officials, he sat up at the head by himself. The Egyptians are on this side, and his brothers, the shepherds, were on this side because Egyptians didn't tolerate shepherds. I'm not sure. It doesn't go into any specific language, but that they just said it's going to be an abomination. We don't like that. Yeah.
As to the name, the reference. When Moses asked him in the bush, who shall I say? He said, you tell them I am that I am. And
Mm-hmm.
to them,
Yeah.
I am. Sam Noble, my father's boss for many years, wrote a poem that went to who you are is what you do and nothing more. I am is the name of God. Your name, sir, is I do by the grace of God. Failing this, you have no name at all. That's pretty much the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I am.
Even for kings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Egyptians do sacrifices?
Yes. Yeah. They would have they sacrificed. I'm not sure exactly why. I didn't get into that far, but yes, there was sacrifices.
Didn't the Egyptians have flocks? And who shepherded those? Was it only foreigners? To shepherd their flocks?
Or was that just the lower caste and they were abomination and you didn't hang out with the lowest caste? There was at least 5 or 6 different levels, social stratus in the Egyptian society, and the peasants and the slaves were the lowest of the low. And that's what all the Hebrews were. They were the slaves.
Larry, when, Aaron made the golden calf, and these are your gods that brought you out of Egypt, did they worship cows? I mean, it might be considered tasteless to sacrifice a bull.
Could be. They had 1,500 to 2,000 gods. Like if there was an animal, pretty much any animal shape or head you could figure out, there was some god that was associated with it. Vegetarians. So, yeah.
One of their gods was a dog. You figure their shepherds didn't have dogs.
I don't know. don't think U.S. shepherds and those. So, yeah.
Larry, if their Egyptian musicians could duplicate the plague of frogs, they should have done that again to keep the flies, except they'd have to deal with the frogs in the right order.
Yeah. Yeah, it's doing that order. They could call the frogs up, but they couldn't make them go away. You know, he had to call Moses and Aaron to make them go away. Yeah, so there's that.
So on that theme, if you read what the text says, it doesn't say the flies died. It said he removed all the swarms of flies and not one remained.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not convinced that there were dead flies all over the place. I think he brought them in, took them out.
Could be. Could be a good point that the flies flew off. He did remove them. Okay, let's look at plague number 5. In first start chapter 9. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Go into Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, behold, the hand of Yahweh will fall with a very severe plague on your livestock that are in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks. But Yahweh will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that nothing of all that belongs to the people of Israel shall die. And Yahweh set a time, saying, Tomorrow Yahweh will do this thing in the land. And the next day Yahweh did this thing. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one of the livestock of the people of Israel died. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, not one of the livestock of Israel was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go." And again, that was H35:13, heavy, dulled, his heart's still dysfunctional. So what did you notice there?
There wasn't any bargaining on that one.
No bargaining.
Pretty devastating plague,
Yeah.
not just inconvenient.
Death of the livestock. Think about what the world was like at that time. How did you get your goods to market? Ox cart, ox, donkey, camel, whatever. Basically, this would have shut the economy down, would it not? Can you imagine that tomorrow not a single engine in the United States would work? Your car doesn't run, the trucks don't run, the trains don't run, nothing works. How do you get your groceries home? How do your groceries get to the store? I mean, the marketplace, every little town has a marketplace. No commerce is happening. It is shut down, except in Goshen. This is a huge economic impact on the nation. Yeah, also a ton of disease. I mean, it talked about that there were heaps of dead frogs everywhere and it ruined the land. Now you've got heaps of dead livestock. Not just little frogs, I mean camels, horses, donkeys, herds, I don't even know what they are, oxen. All your animals are dead, or almost all. Yeah, Larry?
And then Pharaoh pursued the Israelites into the desert with chariots.
Uh-huh.
How'd that work?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. You know, And that's the deal. He did send, and that's one of my questions. He did send messengers or emissaries to Goshen to see this time, did their livestock die? No, it didn't. We'll bring it over. I don't know. Or is this more like, I was thinking about what we witnessed down at Sulphur, downtown Sulphur was wiped out. Well, okay, most of downtown Sulphur was wiped out, but not all of it. The Bank First building and the other building and the Artesian is still there. I mean, we talk in superlatives. There was a very severe plague. Almost everything died, if not everything. I don't know. But I know that in the next plague, there's boils on man and beast. What beast? I thought they all died. Okay? Or how much time has gone on between here? I don't know. Again, we have no consecutive timing on how much distance time-wise is between plague 4, plague 5, plague 5, plague 6. We don't know. Yes, Dale.
You have livestock. In King James, it says cattle. So is this the proper translation?
I think this is a proper translation because as it does say cattle, you notice in this text, it specifies horses, donkeys, camels, the herds, the flocks. So, yeah, like we always talked about the water turning to blood in the Nile, but when you get into the details of it, it says the Nile, the canals, the ponds, even vessels of stone and clay. So all the water, not just in the Nile. Yeah, don't pass over the details. Yeah. Again, you've already pointed this out before, but who's missing in this plague? The magicians. No word from them either. Apparently a lot. It's not the kind of slavery that we think of in America. Going back to the southern plantations where the slaves were property and didn't own. I mean, these people had their own homeland, their own home. They were at the bottom of society, but they did have homes, they did have flocks, they apparently planted their own fields. So it's not like American slavery that we think of. Okay, in a few minutes let's look at plague number 6, the last part of this, which is boils. And Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, "Take handfuls of soot from the kiln and let Moses throw them in the air in sight of Pharaoh. It shall become fine dust all over the land of Egypt and become boils breaking out in sores on man and beast throughout all the land of Egypt." So they took soot from the kiln and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses threw it in the air, and it became boils breaking out in sores on man and beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boils came upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. But Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them as Yahweh had spoken to Moses. And that hardened is H2388, which is the firm grip, which is strengthened or encouraged, not the dulled part. I'm just curious, has anybody had a boil? Have you had a boil? Some of you have? Want to describe that for us? No? Painful and ugly. I went and looked it up on WebMD. It is a staphylococcus infection of a hair follicle. The word that kept showing up, and I was amazed how much it showed up, was painful. And it gets worse, and it gets painful. For what it said, that it's normally the size of a pea, gets read, but it can be as big as a golf ball. Not particularly infectious, but it can become infectious and start spreading. And painful, and in severe cases, will be accompanied by fever and swollen lymph nodes. In other words, it just gets worse. And this says that this covered man and beast, not just one of them. And typically they last 10 to 14 days. Everybody is hurting. Not only is your economy died, and it's hard to get food, but now then probably you're hurting so much you really don't care about eating. Yeah.
Just also notice the progression. The first plagues had to do with the water and the land, and then bugs and frogs and the animals, and now it's on the person.
Uh-huh. One of the things that that God said, that Yahweh said in this was, okay, this is now, I am now putting this on you yourself. He is increasing the severity. It's not something that's happening around you, it's happening to you and on you. I want your attention. I want you to acknowledge that I am the creator of the universe and I am the only true and living God. And he's not listening. What else did you notice in here? Yeah. It doesn't specify it. Most of the people I read on it says they think it is, that it was. That that is a characteristic of this second third, although it doesn't specifically say that. What else? The magicians are back. But they can't stand. Now that means they're not, they can't face Moses. Understand the magicians are the council, what would we call it? We'd call it the cabinet. They're his advisors. And he's going, what do I do now? And the advisor's going, I can't deal with this. I'm too sick. I'm in too much pain. Let me ask you this. In the last verse, in verse 12, but Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had spoken to Moses. Who's them? What them? Who is he not listening to now? Moses and Aaron is a possibility. Who else is a possibility? His advisors. The closest antecedent of them is the magicians. If that is true, then we're starting to see what somebody's already pointed up is we're going to see more of in the next three plagues, that the advisors are saying, let these people go. We are ruined. Let them go. And he won't. So we're starting to see a division between the Egyptians. And so next week, let's start taking a look at plague 7, 8, and 9. I think we'll do that. And notice what the difference is on who the plagues affect. Take a look at that. I appreciate your comments, enjoyed it so much. See you next week.